Following the murder of George Floyd at the hands of the police in the United States of America, the Black Lives Matter movement has gained momentum all around the world, with people uniting to protest against oppressive and exploitative systems that perpetuate inequality, discrimination, and violence on the basis of color. We in Pakistan also have much introspection to engage in, particularly as we see more and more people here discussing the BLM movement. One such post that I felt shed light on the crux of Pakistan's own struggle with color and racism is the post that I'm about to show you on the screen right now. So today, I have on my channel a very special guest whose brave post I haven't been able to stop thinking about since I read it on 6th June. So, hi, Eyez. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today about this really
Hey,
important issue.
thank you.
So before we get into any, questions and discussion on your post, if you could just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
All right, I'm Eyez and I'm an architect. And currently, I am not in Pakistan, I'm in Spain. I'm studying, doing my master's. And that's basically it. And I post a lot of stuff on social media.
Yeah, so I was just asking what sort of emotions and what sort of thoughts were you having at the time when you wrote your post?
Okay. Well, the whole thing when it started off with BLM and it was a big deal at that moment. Everybody was talking about it, and obviously it moved to the conversation started. I think it started in the US when a lot of South Asians were talking about Black Lives Matter, and the conversation started over there about how South Asians themselves are very racist against Black people. And then the conversation moved to Pakistan, where a lot of people were talking about racism and color discrimination in general. So when that conversation about color discrimination started, that was something that hit home to me because, and in my post, as I've mentioned, I mentioned my age at which I started feeling like things were different for a person who was darker and things were different for a person who was fairer. And because in my family, I could tell because there are some people that are relatively darker and some people are fairer. So I could tell that there was a certain way that children of a certain color would be treated like they would be pyara, and they would be adorable. And those are some words that were not being used to describe me. So I was like, so I could feel like at that age, I was starting to feel like, okay, there is a certain color discrimination. So when this whole conversation started coming about how we should talk about this, and this is a problem in Pakistan as well and everything, I noticed that a lot of people who wanted to be allies, instead of realizing the kind of stuff that they had done or said, people that I knew in my family, in my friends, had said some things to me or to other people I know. Instead of acknowledging the kind of stuff that they had done, they were going around, being getting woke points on social media. So that really bothered me, and I felt like it was really important to talk about how it's you hurt my feelings. So if you really want to do something, see how you can, make me feel better, or the person that you might have made, to feel bad. Fix them first rather than just post on social media and forget about it because it was important to me. And
So would
that's
you say that those sorts of feelings that you had at the time, that because you said that you started feeling this from a very young age, so could you maybe describe the sorts of discrimination that you've had to face and how you feel like you've already explained with respect to when you were younger, how certain terminology was not used while referring to you as opposed to other children. So maybe things like that as you were growing up and as you are now.
Um, okay, I mean, I will start off by saying that it wasn't that bad. If you put this in this grander scheme of things, I know I'm old enough to know, okay, it wasn't as bad. There are people who have faced much more discrimination in other aspects also. And even when it comes to color, women, I would say, go through far worse, especially when it comes to appearances, women go through far worse anyway. But my experience was, it was not as bad, but I was still young. And when I was growing up, there are things that you internalize. Um, so it was difficult for me to, at that age, I obviously felt like I wasn't good enough, right? A lot of times I felt like I could do nothing to make myself seem more lovable as a child, simply because I was darker. So to as a child, I feel now that, when a child feels like they can't be loved solely because of the color that they have, it's a little unfair. Um, and then when I was growing up, obviously in school it gets worse. Like, children are a little bit ruthless, and there was a lot of bullying, and obviously there's a word kala, and then so many other terminology that you use for a person that's dark. There was that, and then also when you took offense to those words, that it was like, why can't you be cool? It's just a joke. So I had to also be cool about it. That doesn't bother me, even though it kind of did. So that, and then internalizing all these things. And now as a grown up, I feel like I've internalized this thing of being less than because of my skin color, that when I approach maybe a newer person, or maybe if I go in for a job interview, I have to like overcompensate for this insecurity, where I have to feel like, okay, if I don't feel like I look good enough, maybe I have to over talk, or maybe I have to sell myself extra. Like, there's a certain feeling of insecurity that still exists. Yeah.
That's also, I think it's really important that you highlight that, because in Pakistan, we know that the fairness cream industry is a multi-million-dollar industry. So over here in Pakistan, we see, so many people literally rubbing these mercury-laden, steroid-laden creams into their face, and it, when you say, because you talked about how it's, when you take offense at being called certain names like kala ya savla, or being judged for your appearance because you're darker, all of that is kind of reinforced by this messaging that we're constantly hearing on how, you'll get a better job agar aap fairness cream laga lo, aapki shaadi ho jayegi agar aap fairness cream laga lo. So do you feel like hearing that around you, whether it's from, TV, or whether it's from your friends and family, that also reinforced it?
I do think so, yes, because these are things that and obviously the imagery is everywhere. You see a hero, he's fairer. You see an actress, she's really fair. So people that are succeeding in life, in movies also, and in TV shows and on commercials, they're all fair. And then you see the fairness creams that you're talking about, they usually target women, but it applies to everybody, right? Like, you want a job, oh, be fairer, like, you want to get married, oh, be fairer. Like, it's all going to be okay if you're fair. But the real kicker is that if somebody goes to purchase those things, people judge that person too. Oh, you care so much, you're so vain, and you're so concerned with your looks that you want to change how you look. So you don't have to get fair, you just have to be fair.
I think there's also this thing in our society where, we sort of are very cruel, and we punish people also for limitations or perceptions that we have imposed upon them and made their lives miserable because of it. So that's also kind of problematic within Pakistan, and it's a consistent thing that happens. And as you faced this sort of discrimination, how have you responded to it?
Well, like I said, when I was a teenager and getting into it, that my first response to was to just be cool about it. Because people say, don't let things affect you. The more that people know that you're affected by it, the more you have to, the more they'll joke about it. So I had to play it cool. But as I've grown older, I've realized that some things are not cool. And you cannot be cool about them, especially when you're making fun of someone's appearance or something that you can't change. Especially for women, because women are more affected when it comes to appearances. I Yes, I had some trouble when I was growing up, and maybe I have some insecurities, but it did not affect the quality of my life. It did not affect my future prospects, as opposed to as it does for women. So if a woman is, for example, darker, it does affect her future prospects. Like, the parents are worried, she's not going to find love, she's not going to get married. So it didn't, because, so for me, it's like, you kind of develop like a thicker skin to it, and these are things that really, as you grow older, you're like, okay, I don't want a thick skin about this anymore. I do want to make this a big deal, because as you grow older, either it's an insecurity that you can't fight, or it's actually something that causes damages in your life. Like, so many women get divorced, because their man just doesn't love them enough. A lot of people can't find jobs. So, and it's not just for skin color, it's for body weight. It's for so many other things that come into play, which start off as jokes when you're a teenager, but as you grow older, they become real things. And children say it as a joke, but grown-ups think of them as serious things. So it becomes more and more serious. So now I don't respond coolly to it. Now, like, as you can see from my post, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna take this as a joke anymore.
As you said in the beginning of our conversation, that you perhaps did not face the brunt of this color issue as much as people from lower classes do in Pakistan.
Absolutely.
So basically, what I think there is also important, because someone like you who is empowered now and who can raise their voice, what message would you give to other people who perhaps feel like they would be bullied because they stand up for themselves on this issue, or who feel too scared or embarrassed or humiliated because of the color of their skin? What would be your message to them?
The thing is, you can pretend like you don't care, but deep down you do. And the problem with this oppressive system that we live in is that it will put pressure on you to look a certain way and be a certain way. But if you care too much about it, they will belittle you. So if it's something that you care about, go for it and fight for it. There are a lot of men who are dark skinned and they don't care. So, and that's fine. But if you're like me, who have been affected by it, or if you're a woman who has been affected by it, so you have to, at the end of the day, you just have to stand up. And it took me a very long time to stand up for it. And I have no regrets. I got a really positive response on my social media, the kind of comments that I got. I created a space, I think, where a lot of other people could share the kind of things that they were feeling about it. And a lot of people feel this way. We're just supposed to be okay with this oppression. I don't know why that situation happens, but we all feel oppressed in our own ways. And the more we talk about it, it gets more and more complex, but it gets better, I think.
Yeah,
It's always good to
definitely.
stand up for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's really important that you said, for example, how on your post you got such a positive feedback, because that shows that more and more people are less willing to tolerate this sort of thing, especially people from our generation who are a lot more aware of what is appropriate and what is acceptable and what's not. So thank you so much, Eyez, for sharing what your perspective on this whole thing has been, and also for posting what you posted, because I think that was really important to be put out there.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It feels good to be heard and heard again with you. Thank you so much.
One of the major reasons why I wanted to speak to Eyez was because, as you can see in his post, he's touched on something very important, which is about not just fighting against discrimination by posting things on Facebook or posting things on Instagram, by actually in real life making amends for the people that you have discriminated against, whether that's been inadvertent because of this color issue that's been embedded into us since our birth. So one thing that I says that's very important, and I think everyone should read that part of his post specifically, is that we are responsible as individuals for our own conduct, and therefore we are also responsible for what's going on in our immediate surroundings. And if we see people being mocked because of their color, people being told they'll never get married or get a job or be successful because of their color, then that is something that we not only need to identify and acknowledge and call out, but also work towards changing.